Here we'll solve a quadratic equation and end up with an answer that has complex numbers as our solutions. Our equation says 3x squared plus 8 equals negative 4x. Now recall that for a second power equation, we want to get everything onto the same side and a 0 on the other side. Therefore, we will take the negative 4x from the right and move it left. When we move the negative 4x, it will become positive 4x. And our equation will become 3x squared plus 4x plus 8. We'll say this is equal to 0 on the right. Now let's go to the quadratic formula. When we do the quadratic formula, we'll write out a, b, and c, and then the formula. Our x squared term has a coefficient of 3, so we'll say a equals 3. Our x term has a coefficient of 4, that's b, and our constant is positive 8. Our formula says that x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2a. Let's place each of the three numbers in their positions. B is 4, so we will say negative 4 plus or minus 4 squared for the b squared. That's going to be 16 minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 8. This will all be divided by 2 times a. That's going to be 2 times 3, which will give us 6 on the bottom. Now we will simplify the second part under the root. That's going to be negative 4 times 3 times 8. If you go to a calculator and multiply that together, you will get negative 96. So our quadratic formula now says negative 4 plus or minus square root of 16 minus 96, all divided by 6. We'll continue simplifying that square root on the next page. Now we will simplify the 16 minus the 96. If you subtract that, you'll end up with negative 80. And so we now have negative 4 plus or minus root of negative 80, all divided by 6. Note that we now have a negative inside of our square root, and so we can be assured that our answer will be complex. For that reason, it is now necessary to simplify that square root. We'll begin with negative 80. We will split that negative 80 into, first, square root 80, square root negative 1. And now we'll deal with the 80. Now that 80 is divisible by one of our perfect squares, that's 16. Because if you take 80 divided by 16, you will get 5. And so we can split that 80 into square root 16, square root 5, and still square root negative 1. However, square root of 16 is 4. Square root negative 1 is I, with a square root 5 left over because there is no perfect square that can divide out of 5. Therefore, we now have negative 4 plus or minus 4i root 5, and then both terms will be divided by 6. To simplify a little bit further, we can now split those fractions. When we do that, we'll have negative 4 over 6 plus or minus 4i root 5 divided by 6. However, 4 over 6 is the same as 2/3. So we now have negative 2/3 plus or minus 2i root 5 over 3. 2 going on top and the 3 going on bottom. So our two solutions will be, first, x equals negative 2/3 plus 2i root 5 over 3. And x also equals negative 2/3 minus 2i root 5 over 3. Again, with the quadratic formula, we get answers that aren't too pretty, but they're perfectly fine answers. We will get two complex solutions. Notice that in these complex solutions, the real part, the negative 2/3, is the same for both, and the imaginary part only differs by the sign in front of it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.